Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mastering Stakeholder Engagement webinar we're doing today. This webinar serves two purposes. First, we're doing a course on stakeholder engagement, which I think is going to be one of the best courses around on how to engage different stakeholders at different levels, build the right kind of relationships with the right people, make sure you get invited into the right rooms, and all the things that have to be done to go from a relatively low level consultancy to a practice that is doing really well and thriving. And then we want to go to the next level above that. Like, how do we build a consulting practice that is thriving, that builds trust with everyone throughout the organization? And how do we deal with some of those difficult, common conversations we need to have? I'll be checking chat periodically during this session. I won't do it in every single minute, but if you want to talk, I'll check in on chat every now and then and just try to get a sense of where everyone is feeling. So if you do want to participate, use chat. Try to avoid the Q&A. I can't monitor two windows at once, but I'll do my best any particular time. What I'm going to be focusing on today are systems. We'll cover the scripts and templates and those kind of things a little. But really, I think ultimately what's going to make a difference over the long term are the systems that you deploy to be successful. I think so much of the success of consulting comes down to what systems that you have and what systems you deploy and how consistently you stick with them. So let's dive in. I think fundamentally, the most critical thing is that it's not about winning more pitches. So many of us in consulting, especially when we're just getting started, we spend so much time trying to win the next pitch or get more clients, and we don't spend anywhere near enough time working with the clients we do have to turn one engagement into 5 or 10 or more. Other clients I've been working with for years on often different projects where we've earned maybe $250,000 over that time. I think $500,000 is probably the top client that we've had over the last 5 years or so. But a degree of relationships where we keep working with them, different projects, and fundamentally, that's how consultancies scale. We don't scale by attracting more and more clients because that's an exhausting race of publishing and outreach and promotion. What we do is turn our existing clients into long-term clients. We have a pool of clients that keep coming back to us again and again and again. So we're going to cover a couple of things here today. One, we're going to briefly touch upon the maturity model, just as a basis for everything that we build upon. Two, we're going to cover the tower of trust. I wrote about this very recently. I think this is one of the most critical things to understand if you're trying to increase the revenue that you earn and build a successful consulting practice. Three, we're going to look at how you develop clients for life. Life might be a bit of an exaggeration. Maybe when you're 80 or 90, you won't have those clients anymore. But generally, how do you build sustainable long-term clients? We're going to look at how we map influence and interests. And then we're going to cover a mixed bag of different techniques and approaches and things that have worked very, very well for me and things that will hopefully work well for you as well. Does that sound good? Is everyone excited? And again, if at any point you have any questions, feel free to ask them in chat. I'll try to keep an eye on it during the webinar as well and respond to any questions that come up. But I do want you to participate. I think it's so easy on webinars to just sit there and try and passively receive information. But try and engage more on that. We have, how many do we have? 120 people here today. So it'd be great if you can share your experiences, your expertise, and learn and connect with one another. So let's begin with the maturity model. The maturity model is something I found to be very useful at understanding where are we today and where do we need to go next. And essentially, consultants don't always, but generally kind of follow a pattern that looks like this. First, there's the emerging stage where you're selling your past expertise. Often you might have come from a big company and then you're trying to sell that expertise. A lot of these folks tend to charge by the hour. They might have a brochure style website, just saying who they are, what they do, etc. Then if you continue developing, you get to that sustainable stage. This is where you have a defined niche or niche. If you're American, you're pricing by the project, have more repeat clients. And generally here, you should be replacing the salary you used to earn at least. And then you get more to the elite level. This is where you start earning multiples of your old income. This is where you have solid inbound flow. And this is also where your reputation really begins to build. And finally, you have that industry leader level. This is where you create the category or you're giving keynotes, you're publishing books, doing benchmarks, all the things that make you stand out, perhaps in a very crowded field. The point where most people in that space should generally know who you are. So I feel like Nicole has preempted my question here, but take maybe 30 seconds to look at this and tell me where are you on this? Take 30 seconds just to quickly go through this and tell me, where do you think you're at? And there's no judgment here whatsoever. Like everyone should be at a different stage. If you're at the just the emerging level, the sustainable level, just getting started, that's great. You've got a huge potential to increase what you're doing. If you're at the elite level, that's great too, because then you can take it to the next level. And if you're at the more sustained, that world-class level, that's fantastic too. You're at the top of your game, and then you're just trying to optimize and tune what you're doing. But yeah, take maybe another 30 seconds. Just tell me quickly where you think you are on this. And this isn't rigid. I mean, like this is my opinion, and yours might vary. But it's generally with a lot of the coaching I've been doing with consultants, the kind of journey I see most people going on at the moment. And I think what tends to happen is people get stuck at a relatively low level because often they don't know what the next journey up is, what the next step up is. And what I would recommend is that you have a roadmap for yourself. When you work with an organization, we always have a roadmap of what we're developing, what we're working on, what the next things we have to be in place. I think you should do the same for yourself. Look at where you're at the moment and just try to improve from one level in one row, each quarter, each month, whatever makes sense to you. But just try to go to the next level because there's so many things that once you deploy them, you do really advance to the next level. And it's not just about doing the same thing over and over again. It's about putting in place the practices and the systems that take you to the next level. But like everything else, even with building relationships with stakeholders, this is a journey you go on. Like you don't go from 0 to 100 on day one, but it's about going on that journey, building those relationships, becoming better known, and gradually getting yourself to a place that, yeah, I've got a sustainable source of new revenue. I don't feel stressed about the pipeline anymore. You're just in a very comfortable place. And when consultants stall, it's usually for the reasons that you see here. Very often, a lot of consultants, they tend to rely on their past expertise. They might have a decent website. They might price buy the project and steady client flow. I think most of us at some point will get to that level. And often you don't need too much help to get to that level. You just need to be responding to what signals you get from the market. You have to be very adaptive. Like if you go in headstrong, like, I'm only going to sell this in this particular way, and this is how I'm going to promote myself, that's going to be difficult. But if you do adapt to the signals that you get and you figure out what's working, what's not working, most people I think can get to sustainable pretty well. But I think really to advance and emerge, you have to start pushing your boundaries and your comfort zone. And that typically means a couple of very specific things that are relevant to what we're talking about today. One is deliberate relationships above your ceiling. A question for you all here today. What kind of level in an organization do you typically report to? Is it C-level, VP? Is it execs? Is it people in the weeds doing the work? Like what kind of level is it director level? Is it the manager level? What kind of level do you typically report to? And also be mindful, what is the size of the organization? Like technically I'm C level, but my organization is like essentially just me and a few others. So be mindful of the organizational size. Maybe let's go with that. What's the org size that you typically work with and the level that you work at? And I'll give you another 20 seconds to answer that. So what do we have? C-level from Laurie. Congrats. Nicole says director, C-level, depending on org size. Yeah, the org size depends everything. And also at a certain point, you shouldn't be engaging with the C-level at large organizations because they're not the people that are going to be dealing with the outside consultants. So it does vary, but it's worth being mindful of that too. C-level with 1,000 employees, that's fantastic, Donald. I like that a lot. VPC, C-level. If you're raising your hand, I'm going to advise you not to do it just because I can't take different voice messages during this session. But if you can put your answer in chat, that'd be great. Okay, most people kind of averaging out around the VP level. I think for us, yeah, it's generally VP level. Sometimes a C level, not the CEO, but sometimes CMO, that kind of level. But I would say like the VP level, the level just below that, sometimes director of marketing is where we're at. The larger size organizations, like the VP level, the director level, that's a great place to be in. Like that's a really great place to be in. That's when the projects go from not just 4 or 5 figures, but to 6 figures. That's a really great place to be in. And a lot of this is decided by trust. If you've been reading my newsletter for a while, you know we spent a bit of time, I think 2 weeks ago, just talking about the Tower of Trust, which I think is why a lot of people don't succeed the way they want to in their consulting work, is that they just don't have the level of trust that they need. And so the level of trust fundamentally works like this. At the lowest level are the individual contributors. These are the people that you can reach and engage just by community participation, social media presence. These are like the analysts, the specialists, the people that are in the weeds, often doing the work. And these are the people that will read and consume a lot of the social media stuff you're doing. If most of your promotion is participating on social media, on WhatsApp, on YouTube, on those kind of channels, you're going to reach these kinds of folks. And these folks are great. There's nothing wrong with them, but they don't commission like the 5-figure projects or the 6-figure ones. They might refer you up the chain, which is where we'll go to next. But generally, if you get stuck at this level, if you just try to publish more and more content on social media, thinking you're going to get to that level, it's probably not going to happen. What you do need if you begin on this journey is to have them and then get the referrals. This is where you have maybe a few projects at this level and have some good case studies and testimonials. You might host a webinar like this, for example, and you want recommendations from their team. You want to be published. You want thought leadership in different channels where you're showing up, where managers and team leaders might read you. You might share the results with other work you've done. And then what you want to be doing is always pushing yourself to go a little bit higher. One of the most common mistakes is people get stuck at a relatively low level of trust. And I've seen this again and again and again, where they're doing something and the metrics they're tracking tells them it's working. Like your LinkedIn following is getting bigger and bigger, or your Twitter account is getting more and more engaged and active, and you're getting lots and lots of attention amongst the individual contributors. But your revenue at the end is not growing. And that's not growing because you're not pushing yourself to go beyond that. You're getting stuck at something that you think is working, but it's actually holding you back over the long term. And what we're doing as part of the Stakeholder course, which I'll talk about a bit later on, is getting people to move up this chain, where they go from the IC level to the managers and team leaders, and then go to the director level, where they're getting the referrals internally. They've got good case studies, where they might be doing the keynotes at major events. Like the last couple of weeks, I've done a bunch of speaking events in the US. They might be getting more internal referrals and becoming known. Like when you work with an organization, you should really kind of spread your tentacles throughout that organization and not just engage them once, but stay engaged with those folks over a long period of time. And then at the VP exec level, this is where you want to have that marquee brand track record. Like your case studies become a lot more important the higher that you go up. Those testimonials you have, those referral programs we'll talk about in a second, these things are critical. And I think what happens too often is people work with a client, they have a good time, it goes well, and then they wish the client well, and then that's it. They never engage with that client again. They wait for the client to contact them. And that is completely the wrong way of doing this. So when you think about attracting clients, think about what you're doing now to attract the right kinds of people. And maybe the ones on the left don't always align with the ones on the right. You can think about what tactics work for you. But I do guarantee you this, that if you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're not going to get dramatically better results. For my practice, I began it just with a blog. And I was blogging for a couple of years thinking, oh, this is going well. But it's only once I began doing more speaking events, public speaker training, it's only once I began writing books, that's when things began to really accelerate my career. Because then I got access to better events and better connections and better case studies. And all these things tend to cycle in an upwards way. Does this make sense? Quick yes or no chat. Make sure everyone is still with me here. It all comes down to relationships, but not like the networking you do, in the corridors and all that. That's not an irrelevant thing, but really it's about being deliberate about what you're trying to do. And a good lesson here is that you can't publish your way to the top. Like you can do a lot of things. Like I blogged every day for 12 years, and I think there's a law of diminishing returns about that. You can't just publish your way to the top. At a certain point, you've got to deliberately begin asking for those referrals. You've got to deliberately begin getting connected to more senior folks and staying in touch with those folks as well. You just can't publish your way to the top. And the things that really matter, the more senior you know, are these things, which is one, do the people that you want to work with know you? Like, do they personally know you? Have they worked with you in the past? Marketing to past clients is the biggest gap that most of the people I've worked with make. They just simply don't spend anywhere near enough time marketing to the very people who are most likely to hire them in the future. Two, are you referred internally? Do you often get referrals and recommendations internally? There's a lot of advice that when you work with a client, you should ask them for referrals to other clients that they can get you. I don't know about you. I haven't had a lot of success with this because I think people don't really want to put themselves on the line that often. They don't know who else is looking for work. And this makes everyone a bit uncomfortable. But getting internal referrals, that's a different game where I found people are actually pretty okay to give those referrals if there's something you can offer this person at the higher level. And three is, are they known? Or in this case, are you known? If you don't have the first two, are you known in the industry in some way? Is there any major third-party verification of who you are? Are you the keynote speaker at major events? Have you published a best-selling book in your field? Are you regularly name-checked by different experts in your field? One of the things that really helps me is like, often when I go to events, people will cite my work in their presentations, which is fantastic for me because then I can be like, oh yeah, I was mentioned in that talk. And there's so many opportunities to have those kinds of discussions. So getting that third-party verification is really important if you want to climb up that ladder, which means there's some critical things you have to do. So this is all great in theory, but I think we need to get really into the weeds here. And this is what I really love to do, get really into the weeds and get very pragmatic about what we do. So a couple of things I think are important that most of you, I'm guessing, probably don't do. One is when a project ends, it should always end with a new beginning. And that means a couple of things. One, you should always have a bigger network at the end of a project than when you began. And these are people that you are going to stay in touch with deliberately going forward. Like you should ask your sponsor for introduction. You should have a greater orbit than when you began and keep these people in the loop, stay in touch with them, but do it in a deliberate way. That doesn't mean that you're scheduling these check-in meetings every 90 days because those get canceled all the time because there's no value in that. It means that you're always looking for ways you can add value to that client, where you can always offer them new case studies, new things that you've learned, where you can always offer them more advice. You can always connect them with other people that you know. We'll talk about this a bit more in a second, but you want to have a deliberate plan where if you haven't been in touch with most of your past clients in the last 90 days, something is going wrong and you need to correct that. Three is that you've got to ask the questions. I think referrals are okay to ask for, but you have to do it at the right time and in the right way. And often it works better alongside a testimonial as well. And finally, treat every single introduction as a long-term relationship. Like this isn't going to be an immediate thing. You don't need to pester every senior exec with lots of messages trying to be friends, but you can show up and offer value. When I engage internally in organizations and speak to people more senior, ask them about the challenges they have, any gaps they have, what things would help them. And then I work like crazy to provide those things to them. And then I stay in touch to see how it went for them. I provide them with new case studies and connections that they might have. But you've got to deliberately do this. Otherwise, those relationships tend to die out quite quickly. And it should be a bigger and bigger network that you have in your space. And also be mindful that people in an organization, especially at the more senior they get, they tend to move to other organizations at the same level. So we've had a lot of people over the years where we worked with them at one company and then they move and they invite us to work with them at that company. Then they move again and invite us to work with them at that company. And so every contact can be worth so much to you if you maintain and sustain the relationship the right way. And that means you have to do it without trying to sell. That means you're not trying to sell all the time. You're not like, that's just very annoying. What you want to be and how you should think of yourself is a trusted advisor. Whether there's an immediate sale or not, you're going to stay in touch with them. You're going to try and help them. You're going to give them advice because the moment they are looking for someone to help them, you're going to be the first person on their radar. And that's great because you're probably not going to have to try that hard to sell. They're already pre-sold towards you. A couple of things you can do more deliberately is one is build your own referral program. Too few people actually do this at the moment. A lot of people, when they try to ask for referrals, they're doing this very like haphazard way at the end of a project. Who else can I help? What I would suggest is what happens if you build your own referral program. Platform vendors do this all the time, but you can create a referral program where it's like, hey, I'll give you X% of any project that you send our way. And for us, we do this quite often where we might send someone, let's say a typical project for us might be anything between 20 to 50 grand, maybe a bit higher. That means there's 2 to 5 grand for anyone that refers a client our way, including the people on this call if you're interested. But it's a very strong incentive for people to drive people directly to us. And once they're in that program, you can reward them, you can support them. And so I strongly recommend trying that. 2, build a network of allies. You really should have a network of allies that after you work with them, be like, hey, do you want to join this network of people? We just help each other in that space. There's a WhatsApp group for people in my space where we're sharing tips, who to work with, who not to work with, recommended vendors, insiders news, and gossip. To be honest, there's a lot of gossip, But these are people that are really close to each other now. And we're at the center because we built those relationships with each other. 3, vendor relationships, overlooked in a big way and often done in a bad way. You can, if you want to, join official programs where vendors will recommend you. And this is a pretty good idea, honestly. Like, I have nothing wrong with that. If you take a percentage, a commission to do it, then you have to disclose that as well. But I think if you want to get a lot of referrals, then joining those official programs makes sense. Also, joint events, joint webinars where you're going to show up on their radar. I spent so much time doing webinars with different vendors in this space, and a single webinar does make a difference. But when they see your name popping up all over the place, that really does make a difference. That's when you start to build relationships that can last a long time. And 4, be the peer that others send work to. Now, you can be very generous to everyone. What I would say this is no sell approach, which is where if you're just in that space, being a good member of that community, being generous, helping out people, showing up, even when there's nothing immediately in return for you, that does come back. It takes time, but it does come back to you. And I think this is one thing that everyone can do a lot better of. So a question for you whilst you're here. Which of these are you doing right now, today? Take maybe 20 seconds. Let me know if you're doing any of these today. So Lloyd says 1 to 3. Jessica says 3. Alison says 2. A lot of you using the Q&A tool. Try not to. Mark says 4. Interesting. I would say if you're trying to do all of these at once, it can be tricky. It's better to do one at a time, build that up, and then move on to the next thing. Okay, then let's start talk about some of the things that work to attract larger organizations. Again, it comes down to relationships, but often in ways you don't quite expect. I think often there's this myth of you can attract larger organizations by just doing what you're already doing. Most of our clients are probably the big tech firms at a certain level, and you can't just sell to them on LinkedIn. You can't do cold outreach. None of that works. The only thing that works is building strong relationships. And often means you have to begin with identifying who you want to work with. I wrote a post a while back, maybe someone could put it in chat, that you only need around 50 people like who know you and trust you and believe that you can solve their problem to have a thriving practice at any particular time. Like just 50. And if you genuinely network your way into them, if you identify the right kinds of people that you actually like and you engage with them, you listen to them, you don't pitch, you're very generous with them, and you stay independent, you will attract larger enterprise clients. And I think the key, if you want to work at that level, and it's a level that we work at, I do think it helps because you don't have to be selling as many projects a year to make a good income. But you have to really figure out who do you want to work with, make a list, really zero in on who on that list you need to engage, and then gradually network your way in them via referrals, via connections, via showing up, via offering help. Like benchmarking reports are really useful. Having lots of great introductions, sharing data and frameworks, it can be useful. But really the most powerful thing you can do, especially today in the AI world, is be human and don't try to sell. Everyone tries to pitch way, way, way too soon in their relationship. But if someone isn't expressing a problem they need help with, you should not be pitching at all. Okay, let's talk about clients for life, because this is a topic I think is critically important if you want to be successful in this space. I think if you can't turn one project into many, then it's going to be very difficult to thrive. You're always going to be piecemeal trying to attract one client at a time. And the critical lesson to take away here is that people most likely to hire you in the future are the ones who have already hired you in the past. And I can't stress that enough. The people most likely to hire you in the future are the people that are who have already hired you in the past. And that's so important because we spend so much time trying to attract new clients. Like I know some people that spend 60, 70, 80% of their time trying to attract new clients instead of trying to get more projects on the people that they have done successful work from in the past. And if this doesn't change, you're not going to thrive. And ultimately, success comes from working with past clients more than attracting new clients. And I think by year 5, and I'm curious if everyone can just put how old their consulting practice is in chat whilst I continue. But by year 5, you really should have like 40 to 60% of your revenue coming from past clients. And this number might actually be low. This number might be low itself. I think definitely by year 3, you should probably be at this level. But to be a bit more conservative, I think 40 to 60% is a good target to aim for. Because if you're not, if you're always relying on new business, you're always going to struggle. You're always going to be at the whims of the markets and algorithms and level of competition. And so we want to be making sure we get more work from past clients. Congratulations to Jessica and the rest of you who have survived your first year. And it's probably because most people don't. And this is the difference you can see here. Look at the difference when you're just trying to attract new clients compared to re-engaging past clients, the people you've already attracted, people whose trust you've already spent a huge amount of time and effort and energy to learn. Look at the growth of a practice like this compared to one without it, where at a certain point, you can't out-publish anymore. You can't keep doing the same thing expecting bigger results. I've found with almost everyone I've worked with, they spend far too much time trying to attract new clients instead of marketing to existing clients. And that's a shame because the key to success, especially for a consulting practice like we're building, is to have a small number of clients, like a pool of clients that come back to us year after year after year. So question for you folks, what percentage of your clients are repeat business, if you had to guess? Take maybe 20 seconds and put your answer in chat. What percentage of your clients are repeat clients, if you had to guess? I would say I think by revenue, I think it's probably 65, 70% of our revenue is probably from retained clients this year. And the number of clients is a bit different, actually. The number of clients is probably more like 50-50, perhaps. But how about the rest of you? What percentage of your clients come from business compared to new clients? Suddenly gone very quiet in chat. Well, I'll leave that with you and then I'll continue with the webinar. But if you want to put your answer in, then definitely feel free to share. Catherine, thank you. 1/3, definitely area to know. Well, I think that 1/3 is still better than most. Honestly, most people are like 90% or so. So I think 1/3 is great. And thank you for sharing. What the other 111 of you are doing, I don't know. So let's talk about how we do this in a very deliberate way. So one of the things we talk about in the course is how we wrap up a project well. How do we wrap up a project so there is a new beginning? And there's a couple of things to cover here. One is we don't just say goodbye. We plan an ending that is really going to wow them and make sure that, oh, yeah, this is someone we want to work with again. And so there's a time frame we don't always abide by, but we try to hew relatively towards this, which is when we're like a couple of weeks out from the ending of the project. That's when we package up the deliverables. So it's all in one email. Even if we send them all already, we try to package up so it's one email they can always refer to. We make sure that the invoice is sent out on time. We schedule the updates, the follow-on calls. Like we schedule these and not just calling them updates or checking calls. We have like a strategic name for them, like strategic review, strategic update. And we actually give these things away for free in the contract itself, because we know for us, it benefits us because we can always find more opportunities than where we can help them. If you're ISO 27001 certified, then we set a data deletion date. We get the testimonial. Typically, probably around 1 week after the project is finished is a very good time to get a testimonial. And testimonials and case studies, I can't stress this enough, are so critical to attracting more clients. The more you can show and share what you've done, the more value you're going to get. And then when it's like 2 weeks out, typically here we want a free bonus that we offer them. So what we try to do is like a parting gift, maybe a benchmark report, maybe connections, maybe an invitation to an upcoming event, something that sets the agenda. We also try to gather feedback at this point as well. Maybe 3 weeks. The timeline does vary a lot, actually. But we were trying to gather feedback via survey. You can find an example on our website somewhere of what can I improve? Based upon what we've done before, how can we improve our consultancy work for you? And there's a multiple choice option for that. If you're working with a team, then we update the relevant documents, the logos on our website, that kind of stuff. Check that we get paid, of course. And then we invite them to become one of our allies. It does depend on how well the project has gone, but we always try to invite them to become one of our allies. And one of the things we also try to do more of now is structure the projects in a way where there's always another thing they can do. Like really, before we even get this far, I would have pitched them on another project that I think would help them. I would have pitched them on an idea like, oh, we can also help you improve this. We can also do this for you. And so whenever they get an extra budget, they can say, oh, yeah, actually, there's a project that still needs to be done. And so one project should always be opening door to many. Like there should never be a situation where you've done a project and can't think how you can help that client anymore. So I'd really think about what we can do going forward beyond that. A question from Ray, what do you mean by ally? Allies, if you search my newsletter, you'll find the post. But essentially, we try to build a network of allies where we invite our clients to. It's a very small group. We've tried different tools, but WhatsApp actually seems to work incredibly well. Where we invite them to become an ally, where they can connect with other people in their space in a very private, low risk environment, where they can ask questions, get advice, tips, and techniques, and try and gradually bring more and more people into that. Like, honestly, we've got a lot of the most senior people in our space in a network of allies that I am responsible for. And so being in charge of that really helps. Hopefully that helped, Ray. Let me know if it didn't. And what I talked about before, a mistake that comes up again is people try and sell every project in an individual way. So one thing you can do during a project is to say, oh, I noticed you also need help with this. Would you be open to a proposal from me about this? And they can say, no, that's totally fine. Honestly, that happened like a week ago. Wasn't awkward. It's just like, okay, fine. If that changes, just let me know. But quite often they will be willing to hear you out. You can be like, there's another project we can do for you and we can scope it out. Another thing you can do is change how you're selling your projects entirely. And what I mean by this is that a lot of consultants, when they market themselves and deliver their work, it's always in a one-off way. So they always like be promoting themselves about who they are. They always be asking clients, what do you want? What keeps you up at night? What's your budget? These are the questions that come up in the sales process. Then they will create a bespoke proposal for that client, and then they'll deliver the invoice and move on. And it's always like one-off project after one-off project after one-off project again and again and again. What you should be doing, especially if you want to evolve in your space, is promoting your system. This is where you're promoting a unique system that people have to progress through to achieve a world-class level. Well, so I'll give you an example. I'm doing it in this session right now. Like right at the beginning, there were benchmarks where you could all get a sense of where you're at today. And these all come back very honestly. I think there's a lot of good practice in how we do that. But you want to be promoting a system and letting people know where they are benchmarked today. I think maturity models and benchmarks work really well. And then when you get a new client in the sales process, you diagnose where they are on your benchmarks or in your maturity model at the moment. It's an audit, a gap assessment, opportunity scan. That diagnosis, you can either package it into the sales process or it can be its own deliverable itself. We typically sell this, but not always. And then you can offer modules that people can buy to improve on each scale of that. So we have a maturity model we use for communities at the moment. We benchmark where people are today. And then if we want to progress, there's an extra module they can buy that takes them to that level. And once they've worked with us to improve on one scale, they tend to keep buying the modules from our system to keep upgrading where they're at. Does this make sense? This is a very important concept to understand, I think, and a lot of people don't do it well. Give me a quick yes or no if you understand this. Nicole says, this maturity model / diagnostic approach work well for me. Yeah, I think it's really important. And also, it's something that people can engage you on. Like if I want to work with a client, one of the easiest things I can do is diagnose where they're at today. So some of you might not know who I am. So I run a consultancy called Feverby, which is the main thing I do. And we help organizations build successful online communities of different stakeholders, customers, employees, etc. But we can benchmark where they're at today, offer that to set up a call, an interview or something like that with them, and then give them an approach that makes sense. But when you have that benchmark in place, like the consultant's maturity model I had at the beginning, you can say, hey, this is how you progress. And the great thing is that they can track their own progress as well. So they can see what they're getting for the money. They can see where they're going and where they need to go. And it gives a very easy way of building long-term relationships and nurturing regular customers. And also it's fantastic at situations where there's a budget at the end of the year that they have to spend. So you could always be in mind for that. Question from Erin, do you promote your system ideally on a direct call with them instead of relying on LinkedIn posts? We do both. Like if you look at my works, you can find a lot of examples of our systems. Once we're in the sales process, and not always, I don't do this with every project out there because sometimes they're asking for something that's so custom and unique, it just isn't the right fit. But very often we do diagnose their problem on our benchmarks and then tell them what they need to improve on those benchmarks as well. Because I think that's where everyone wins. I think that's where you win, like on this webinar right now, to know exactly where you're going. The things you can always do, even if you don't want to take the diagnostic approach when you're staying in touch with these past clients, is always connect them with more folks like themselves. Like a network of allies works so well here because these are people that have solved the same problem in the past or peers in their space. Everyone always wants to connect with people like them. So if you are able to offer them a connection, offer to make connections, it's a good way to stay in touch with a past client. Last week, I did this with a past client we had worked with, and that reminded her there's a project that she wanted to do, and that's being a 10K project for us. And that all came from one email I sent to her. You can always offer more resources like updated benchmarks, research you've undertaken. It's always a good idea to do surveys of your audience, then publish the results because everyone wants the results. There's lots of issues like that. Knowledge. Yes, for everyone asking, I will share the webinars after this call. And if you have to run, I completely understand. Knowledge, you can always share what you've seen work and fail elsewhere. Like I'm often in touch with past clients being like, hey, have you seen this case study or this example or this news? Like that's how I'm in touch. I'm showing up in a way that always adds value to them. I never do like the check-in call because I think no one wants to show up for that, but I'm always trying to show up. And also if I know there's opportunities, I will just show up with emotional support. If I know they're going through a difficult time or there's something in the news, I might just show up and just see if they want to chat, have a call about it, talk ideas through. If I can't think of anything else, I often just show up, be like, hey, can we talk through where you're at? Do you need a sounding board for anything? Like these kind of things are always good, but never pitching in these situations. Okay. So let's go up a little bit more to some of the stakeholder processes we use. And this one is quite common. Mapping stakeholder influence and interest. I think it's very common. But what we're really doing here is taking different sections from the course so I can give you an idea of what that looks like. And also things that might be useful to you. If you're working with a large organization or project that involves a lot of stakeholders, it is absolutely critical that you map out the stakeholders' level of influence over the project and the level of influence within the project. Like you should really be doing this in every major project you work on, because also this is a good way of how you can stay in touch with the right people after the project as well. So you want to look at how much interest do they have in the project? And then you want to know how much influence do they have over the project? And this will give you an idea of how to engage with each of them. If you've been in consulting a while, you've definitely seen a framework like this before. It's very common, but I think it's a very simple way of using things, of using the basic tools that can really help you. Essentially, people that have high influence over a project and high interest in it, they're your working group. These are the people you proactively engage. You give them a heads up before every meeting. You make sure that decisions are made before the meeting. And this is a quick aside, by the way, like you shouldn't really be using meetings to make decisions. Like almost all decisions should be made before the meetings, and decisions fundamentally are fantastic places. So meetings are great places to just confirm and get everyone on the same page. If you try and make a decision in a meeting, you're going to have a discussion that goes endlessly, and some people might not want to say what the outcome is because they want to rock the boat. Try and get the decisions made before the meetings. Like really, really, really do this. Anyway, there should be a small group, a working group of people that are highly engaged in the project. There should be those people that have high influence over, usually the senior sponsor or stakeholder often has a high influence, but maybe they're not super interested in this. Like they often legal teams fall into this category and the IT teams as well. There's lots of different things that they're working on at once, and you're just narrowing what they need to hear at any particular time. Then there's folks that just keep informed. Maybe they're highly interested. Maybe the people that are in the weeds doing the work itself, but they don't have a lot of influence over the project. But people just need to be supportive of the final outcome. And you engage with different stakeholders differently. This is something that if you've done, as Nicole saying, project management training is pretty basic, but you should be doing this. Like honestly, you should be doing this and making sure that you are staying engaged with all the stakeholders in the project. One of the things I tell with my team is that you really have to be on top of this, like proactively engaging with the stakeholders. If at any point someone has to ask you for an update on the project or when something is going to be done or due, you've failed. Like you haven't communicated with them enough. And when you don't communicate with your clients enough, it creates a void. And people tend to fill voids with their worst fears. Like when there's silence, just think of any example you like. People project their worst fears and ideas into that silence. So it's better you always over communicate. Like it's very hard to over communicate with clients, but it's very easy to under communicate with clients. And as I said before, every stakeholder is a candidate for the top 50 that you're going to be engaged with long term. One thing, as I said before, is that your network should get bigger and bigger and bigger. And at a core level, that is completely right. I think it should. But at a certain point, you can't maintain the same level of relationships with all these different stakeholders. Once you get to like 75, 100, 150, 200, you can't continue engaging with all of them in the same way. It's just exhausting. And your energy level will start to dip. What you do instead is you narrow down who are the 50 people that you need to engage with. And often I might let a past client go because someone else has taken that top 50 space. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to engage with them ever again. It just means that I know my energy level could only work at a certain level to keep engaging with everyone. And if you want to attract work from past clients, you have to prioritize who are the critical people to stay in touch with. And really, I think the difference between a lot of new consultants compared to great ones is that average consultants are very good at doing the deliverable, interviewing all the stakeholders have to interview, and then moving on to the next client and then hoping for referrals. Where you need to be and where I think you really thrive is where you build the deliverable and the coalition of people that are going to implement that program, where you're keeping every stakeholder engaged at the right cadence, where you're continuing to engage the stakeholders beyond that initial engagement, where you're proactively making the additional effort, even though it's not in the scope of work or the job description. That's where you really thrive. And you're treating every single introduction you get as someone that might be in your life for the long term. There might be a source of clients and opportunities in the future. Okay, 5, the last thing we're going to cover today is how we read the room. Some advanced techniques to build trust, build good relationships, and things that I've seen work very well that I think a lot of consultants don't do today. So one, and this is one that so few clients do, but it's probably one of the most powerful things that we do, is they don't properly name the problems. They do the research. Like they do lots of research and then they present the results of that research and they might have a summary, but they don't name the problem in a way that's engaging. And they create what we call a ghost diagnosis, where it's there, it's kind of haunting them in the background, but they're not really describing what it is. And what I think is really important is that you can go into and define what is the problem in the most simple possible way. And if you think of the things that spread, the things that we remember, the things that we can easily recall, and what you want is to take a problem and make it visual, make it unique, understand who impacts it, how do they impact it. But what you want to think about with any problem you're dealing with clients is how do you name it in a memorable way? And this is such a powerful thing, and so few people actually do it, which is really a shame. And there's a lot of nuance to this. I won't go through each point here. You can read my newsletter if you want. But really think about how you name it in a way that gets people to take the action that you want them to take. I remember like so many examples of this. I remember one person called a group that was still using old technology, the dinosaur group or something like that. And it motivated them to action because they didn't want to be called that. Someone's asking for another example, so I'll share it in this slide. This is actually a very common example, but in my space, like our research has something like over time, although the number of registered users continues to grow, the overall volume of contributions has remained static or is declining. New members are not engaging at the same rate as earlier cohorts, and some of the more active participants may be reducing their activity levels. This makes complete sense. It's a paragraph, it's clean, it works. People can kind of understand what this means, but it needs a name for people to talk about. Without a name, it becomes this vague thing. So we called it the participation plateau. Now people can see exactly where that is. They can see exactly that, oh, we've reached this plateau. Now we need a new mountain to climb. It gives people an easy way of talking about the problems that they have. Monica, I hope that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't. But with your clients, think about how you can name things in a catchy way. Because when you name things, people really like that. They really like the value that consultant does in making all this disparate information, making it clear, visual, and easy to understand and talk about. Okay, couple more things. Energy levels. I won't dwell upon this too much, 'cause I think it's pretty clear. But I've been on calls with a whole range of folks where the energy level isn't where it should be. And so everyone has different personalities, right? We all do. But think about your energy level and try and match your client's energy level. And ideally be slightly above that. But don't get to the point where you're overly excited, where everything is awesome and fantastic, because honestly, that comes across as quite junior and eager to please. But don't be a downer either. Don't be someone that's not showing enough interest in the project. Think about when you're on a call with a client, how they're behaving. What is the energy level they're giving you? What are their hand movements, their body movements? What language are they using? And try and match that, but be just a little bit above it. Your energy level doesn't have to be identical to a client's, but it shouldn't be so out of whack that you're coming across as hyperactive and too eager to please, or so far down that you're kind of a downer. And I think we all intuitively understand this, but it's interesting how often people don't actually recognize this. They don't see it in themselves that they're doing it. Okay, a couple of very quick things I'll pay a little bit of attention to, but just things to be aware of. There's certain things that you should be picking up on when clients deliver them or when you observe them. And you want to be very careful how you deal with them. So, on the emotional side, we all understand that listening is important and we all think we're really good listeners. I think most of us, including myself, I'd imagine, we overestimate how good we are at listening. Because we all know that communication is more than just the words, but sometimes we focus just on the words. And we don't always notice when a client changes the conversation or shift in tone in the topic, or when they make jokes that disguise a real issue. When there's a sigh, or it's fine, like you've got to pay attention to these situations. You're like, and say, hey, I noticed that your energy changed when you said that. Is there something deeper here that we can explore? Like questions like that really help things to open up. Where not only do people feel they can trust you and you're really listening, but it gives you other opportunities to work with them in the future, and they begin to build a much stronger relationship. Likewise, it's on the verbal side, there's always terms and expressions that will come up. Like we've been trying to do X, or I don't know if this is in scope, the hesitancy, or between you and me, or something that might be mentioned twice in the call. And again, I would address these things as best you can. Like when someone says, we've been trying to do X, okay, that's interesting. You've been trying to do X. So then the immediate question is, well, what happened? What worked? What didn't work? Why were we trying to do it at that time? Like there's so many additional questions. And asking good questions is the key to a lot of this. Like between you and me, when someone says that, what are they really saying to you? Take maybe 30 seconds and just put your answer in chat. If someone begins a sentence between you and me, what are they really saying to you at that moment? Nicole, yes, they trust you. Oh, he says help? Maybe help. I think you might need a bit more on that. What they're saying is they trust you, but what they also saying, what's the flip side of that? They're also saying they don't trust the other people that they work with. They're also saying that there's some internal conflict there to explore. And yeah, Mark, I think, has really, I think Mark has nailed that. And they might be pretending it's a secret, but the words and language are so important. And it's really important when you do have a call that you're zeroing in on these kind of things, because there are so many tales that are so important. Another thing, this is my personal bugbear, and I'm putting it in here, not because it's a huge thing, but it just really, really annoys me. You should never, ever be saying to a client, or pretty much anyone really, let me know if I can help. Like, what does that actually mean? Like, if someone says to you, or if you say to someone, let me know if I can help, what are you really saying to them? Take a couple of seconds and put your answer in chat. When you say to someone, let me know if I can help, what are you really saying? For most of us, give me more money. No. I would say there's like a cultural factor in here as well, where it might mean different things to different people and different cultures and all that. But let me know if I help is more like, I don't want to help. I mean, it's one of these things you say when you actually want to help. Because if you did, you'd be suggesting ways that you can help. That's why instead of saying, let me know if I can help, you want to validate what the issue is. You want to follow up, and then you want to build a way you actually can help. So validate, follow up, then build a way you actually can help. This, especially that, that build a way. I've seen 2 companies that deal exactly with this. Happy to share what worked. Suddenly you're proposing ways you can help, and that helps improve the relationship. So we have a couple of minutes to wrap up, but as we covered, maturity model, tower of trust, clients for life, mapping influence and interests, and then some advanced techniques, which I think were, I want to date you, but I can't ask. That's an interesting one. I don't know if you're talking to me or if that's what your takeaway was. And then advanced techniques as well. Anyway, if this is useful and we've dived into a couple of different things here, I really do think and hope that you sign up for the course we're doing. I don't think there's really a good course I've seen on engaging stakeholders at an advanced level. And I do think we need one, because I do think there's so much opportunity to build a successful practice just by better engaging the stakeholders we have. So we're putting together a program that's 5 weeks. It's going to begin on May the 27th, and it's going to be live sessions. If you sign up, you also get access to my proposal mastery course, template pack, and you'll be able to engage with me and each other as well. And that'll be $450. However, if you sign up soon, and if you attended this webinar, and if you stayed to the end, because I know a couple of folks didn't, there's also a $75 off if you use the early 75 discount code at checkout. So you go to Stakeholders. I'll type the link in chat so you can all see it. Let me know if that link worked. It should do. I tested it today. But yeah, everyone asked what time of day are the courses. It varies, but usually it varies based on where people sign up. But typically we do it at 5 p.m., around 5 p.m. UK time. So that means that people also join from the USA at 12 and at 9 a.m. on the West Coast. If you're in Australia, it's probably not going to work, to be honest. But you can still access all the live recordings because every session is recorded. But if you do sign up by May the 22nd, then you can get $75 off using the code here. Also, if you like this session and you want to learn more about me, you can get 25% off your paid subscription forever. So just go to richardmillington.com. Again, I'll type in the link so you can just click that. Webinar 25. I think that link should work. And you can get 25% off my newsletter as well. So you've got 2 offers here. I really think that this course is probably my favorite course I've done, because I think it goes really into the weeds of language and energy level and how to respond to different stakeholders different ways. Not just the structure, but really into the weeds of how to do it. A question from Mark. Is it better for certain phases of consulting or all? I think it's great for all. I think if you just feel you're fantastic at this, like if you already very well networked at senior levels and most of your clients are repeat business, you might not need the course. But I don't think many people are. I think based on all the coaching I've done, which is quite a lot now, I think a lot of people have so much more growth here than they give themselves credit for. So yeah, if you want $75 off, you can use the URL stakeholders.richardmillington.com. If you want to save money on my newsletter, if you attended this webinar, you get a 25% off forever. Okay, hopefully this session was useful. Did this session help? Good question for everyone here. Is this session useful for you at all? And if you say no, I promise I won't be that hurt. What were your key takeaways from today? What's the one thing that you'll be taking away from today? I'm always curious, like, what's the one thing that people will remember about a session after it's done? Network of 50, being targeted. Interesting. Thank you for that, Aaron. Diagnosis versus ghost research. Interesting. Yeah. Always love seeing what resonates and what doesn't. Trading models and benchmarking your clients. Yeah. The volume that repeat clients can contribute. That's great too. I know that we're over time as well, so I won't keep you. I'll put the recording up soon and I'll send through the slides. But really, I hope that you check out the course. I think it's one of the best courses that we've done. I think it will be useful to a lot of people. If you found this useful, then hopefully you will join the program. So I'm putting the link one more time. And thank you so much, everyone. Like, it's been great to have you here. I appreciate that you turned up on a Friday to join the session. And if you have any questions later on, just let me know. Thank you all. And hopefully I will see you soon. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.